What would you do if you found out the people who raised you had been planning to erase you from their legacy for years? That question has haunted me for 2 years. I'm Patricia Sullivan, 38, and this is the story of how my family, the ones I loved and trusted most quietly, erased me from their future. But before I tell you about the betrayal, I want you to understand the Sullivan family I once thought was perfect. We lived in Millfield, a small town in Michigan with about 15,000 people. My dad, Robert Sullivan, everyone called him Bob, had owned Sullivan's Hardware since 1985. My mom, Helen, retired from her school secretary job to help him run the store. Sullivan's Hardware wasn't just a store, it was a town landmark, a place where people didn't just buy screws or paint but came to talk about the weather, last week's football game, or life in general. My dad knew every customer's name and remembered what they needed before they even asked. I was the youngest of three. My brother Michael, 42, is a software engineer in San Francisco. He's married to Jennifer and they have 2 kids. My sister Susan, 40, is a nurse in Dallas, raising her daughter Linda alone after a divorce. And me? In my parents' eyes, I was always the little girl who never grew up. When I was 12, Dad started teaching me about the store. While Michael and Susan were off with friends, Dad would take me by the hand, walk me through the aisles, and explain every screw and nail size. Right then, I felt chosen special, like I was meant to carry on the family legacy. "Patricia," he'd say during those slow afternoons, "one day this place will be yours. I want you to know it inside and out." By 16, I was officially working part-time at the store. Michael was already in college, and Susan was busy with school and dating. I was the one who spent every afternoon and weekend at Sullivan's. I still remember graduation day. While my friends dreamed about leaving for college, I felt torn. Northwestern had offered me an MBA scholarship, a dream opportunity. But when I shared the news at dinner, my parents' reactions stunned me. The moment I finished, Mom set down her fork and said, "Honey, I'm proud of you, but are you sure that's what you really want?" "What do you mean?" I asked, uneasy with her tone. Dad looked at me with pleading eyes. "Sullivan's Hardware needs you, Patricia. We're getting older. If you leave, who's going to keep the family tradition alive?" My heart melted hearing that. Feeling needed, trusted, it made me forget my own dreams. But I could study and still come back. I tried. Mom gave me a sad smile. 4 years of college. You might meet someone, start a life somewhere else. I know you, but this family needs you now. I glanced around the table. Michael stayed silent. Susan nodded, siding with them. No one encouraged me to chase my own path. I turned down Northwestern. That decision shaped the next 20 years. Instead of pursuing an MBA, I stayed in Millfield and worked full-time at Sullivan's. My parents promised to slowly hand me the reins, and I trusted them completely. In 2015, when I was 29, another chance came. David Morrison, my high school sweetheart, now a successful lawyer in Chicago, asked me to marry him. "Patricia, we could start fresh in Chicago," he said the night he proposed. "You could study or even start your own business." But when I told my family, I got those same expectant looks from my parents. The next day at the store, Dad came to me. "Sweetheart, I know David's a good man, but Sullivan's Hardware is in our blood. If you leave, this legacy dies with us." His words cut deep. The weight of duty crushed me again. I said no to David's proposal. Since then, I've given 8 more years to Sullivan's Hardware. "I never drew a paycheck," my parents said. "Family doesn't keep score. We'll take care of you later." I lived in the family house, cared for them, and poured myself into the business. Under my management, revenue grew 35%. I modernized the store with a website, online orders, and promotions. My parents bragged about me to customers, calling me the future of the Sullivans. Michael checked in once in a while from California, mostly about their health. Susan is too busy with life in Texas. But me? I was here every single day, the only one truly devoted. I thought I was the most loved child, the trusted one, the clear heir to our family's legacy. But I was wrong, painfully wrong. In that moment, I glimpsed a future where every sacrifice I'd made meant nothing, where family love was just an illusion, and where I'd have to face the brutal truth about the people I loved most. Everything started shifting last March. At first, it was just small things I brushed off. Phone calls were cut short when I walked in. Quiet looks between my parents when they thought I wasn't paying attention. Papers were suddenly locked away in drawers that had always been open. I remember the first morning I really felt something was wrong. It was a Tuesday in early March. I came downstairs early to make breakfast like I always did. Just as I hit the bottom step, I heard Dad's voice on the phone in the living room. The second he realized I was coming down, he said quickly into the receiver, "Tom, I'll call you back. Someone just walked in." "Who were you talking to?" I asked casually as I went into the kitchen. Dad turned, looking a little flustered. "Oh, just Thomas Mitchell. Some tax stuff we needed to go over." That struck me as odd. Thomas Mitchell had been our family lawyer for over 30 years, but he usually only called when something important came up. And why would Dad be talking about taxes at 6 in the morning? Is there some kind of tax problem? I pressed while pouring his coffee. Dad hesitated, then shook his head. Nothing serious, just the usual yearly paperwork. But the way he avoided my eyes and rushed out of the kitchen stuck with me. My dad, Richard Sullivan, had never hidden anything from me, especially about finances, which I'd been helping him manage for years. After that, I started paying closer attention. Anytime the phone rang and I reached for it, my parents rushed to grab it first. If I asked about the calls, I got vague answers. An old friend, the doctor's office, the insurance company. A week later, I noticed something even stranger. While cleaning the small office at home, I realized the file cabinet was locked. The same cabinet that had been open for 20 years, holding every important family document. "Dad, why's the cabinet locked?" I asked when he walked in. He stiffened. "There are some important papers. I just want to keep them safe." "What papers are that important?" I pushed. He gave me a strange look. "Don't worry about it. I'll tell you when the time comes." That answer left me uneasy. I was running the store, handling financial decisions, yet suddenly I was being shut out. Then came the bank account. As a co-signer, I always reviewed the monthly statements. In March, I spotted a $15,000 transfer from our savings into an unfamiliar account. "Mom, I saw a $15,000 transfer in this month's statement," I asked while we were going over the books together. She froze, then said quickly, "Oh, that's a new investment we're trying to diversify." "What investment? How come I didn't know about it?" I asked. Hurt? Mom got up, avoiding my eyes. "Sweetheart, some decisions take time. Once things are clear, we'll go over it with you." Her vague excuse only made my anxiety worse. We had never kept financial secrets, especially not something that big. By late March, things escalated. Michael called home one evening, and I happened to answer before my parents got to the phone. "Hi, Patricia, can I talk to Dad?" he asked, sounding tense. "He's at the store. Want me to pass along a message?" I offered. Michael paused, then said, "No, I'll call back. It's nothing important." But it didn't sound like nothing. My brother had never once called without chatting with me for a few minutes. "Are you okay, Michael? You sound—" He cut me off. "Patricia, I just need to talk to Dad about work. Don't worry about it." After he hung up, a chill ran through me. What work could a software engineer in California possibly need to discuss with Dad, a hardware store owner in Michigan? That night, when Dad returned Michael's call, I purposely passed through the living room a few times, straining to hear. Bits and pieces floated out. "Already decided. Patricia doesn't need to know yet. Tom says it's best. Has Susan agreed yet?" My heart stopped. They were talking about me without me, deciding something best for me while keeping me in the dark. When Dad hung up and walked out, he jumped seeing me in the hall. "How long have you been standing there?" he asked, guarded. "Just passing by." "Who are you talking to?" I said, trying to sound casual. "Michael. He's busy, hardly calls anymore." Dad answered too quickly. "Did he say anything for me?" He shook his head. "No, just asked about our health." But I knew he was lying. A 20-minute call wasn't just small talk. And why had Michael mentioned Susan agreeing? After that, I became hyper-aware. My parents exchanged glances when I walked in. They stopped including me in long-term plans for the store. Conversations about the future that once had my voice now happened behind closed doors. In late April, I stumbled on another red flag. Sorting through the mail, I found a letter from the insurance company about updating life insurance beneficiaries. Usually, those papers were shown to me right away. "Mom, there's a letter about updating beneficiaries," I said, handing it to her. She snatched it quickly. Thanks, I'll handle it. Want me to fill it out for you like before? I offered. Her voice tightened. No need. It's just routine paperwork. Oh. The way she hid it, avoiding my eyes, felt like another brick in the wall between me and my family. By May, I was desperate for answers. I called Susan. Do you know anything about these meetings with the lawyer? I asked carefully. She went silent for a long moment, then said, Why are you asking? You sound like you know something. I pressed. Patricia, some things Mom and Dad take care of themselves. Don't overthink it, she said quickly. Her evasiveness confirmed what I already feared Susan knew more than she'd admit. By then, I was drowning in unease. It felt like an entire plan was unfolding right in front of me. And I was the only one not allowed to know the truth. The truth hit me on a Friday afternoon in late May, and my world fell apart in minutes. That day, Dad had a routine doctor's appointment set 2 months earlier for his high blood pressure. Mom went along like she always did, leaving me to watch the store and the house. Around 3 p.m., while I was doing inventory, the phone rang in the little office at home. I ran in and picked up, thinking it might be a customer order. Sullivan's Hardware, Patricia speaking, I said on autopilot. Right away, I heard Thomas Mitchell, our family lawyer. Oh, Patricia. I thought Bob would pick up. Is he home? Dad's at the doctor, Uncle Tom. Want me to pass along a message? I asked. I'd called him Uncle Tom since I was a kid because he was Dad's close friend. He went quiet for a second, then sounded unsure. No need, Patricia. I'll call back. But before he hung up, I heard him mutter to someone. Looks like Bob hasn't told her about. Uncle Tom, what did you just say? I jumped in, now curious and on edge. He rushed his words. Nothing, Patricia. Just work. Say hi to your parents for me. After I hung up, I stood there in the office with a knot in my stomach. Looks like Bob hasn't told her about, kept looping in my head. Told me what? Nervous and shaky, I glanced around the room. The file cabinet was still locked like always lately, but Dad's desk wasn't. I've never snooped through my parents' things, but the unease pushed me. Top drawer. Pens, paper, random office stuff. Second drawer. Same. Third drawer on the right, the deep one. A thick folder was sitting right up front. The title on the cover made my heart stop. Last Will and Testament, Robert and Helen Sullivan. Updated May 2023. My parents' will. Updated last May. My hands trembled as I opened it. The first page was a letter from Thomas Mitchell explaining the changes in the new will. I skimmed the legal language and jumped to the key section. Distribution of assets. There it was, clear as day. Sullivan's Hardware Store and all equipment. Est. $850. Michael Sullivan. Family home at 247 Maple Street. Est. $420,000. Susan Sullivan. Savings and investment accounts. Est. $380,000. Split between Michael Sullivan and Susan Sullivan. Patricia Sullivan. None. The room started spinning. I had to read it 3 times to believe it. My name, Patricia Sullivan, didn't appear next to anything. Not a dollar, not a keepsake. I was completely erased from the family estate. A wave of nausea hit me. I dropped into the chair and focused on my breathing so I wouldn't pass out. Sullivan's Hardware, the place I'd poured 8 years into building and growing, would go to Michael, my brother in California, who rarely visited. The family home, where I was born, grew up, and still lived, would go to Susan, my sister in Texas, who came back a few times a year. The savings, built in part by my work running the store, would be split between Michael and Susan. And me, the one who sacrificed everything for this family, would get nothing. I flipped through the rest, hoping for a note, an older will, anything to prove this was a draft. Nothing. Just both their signatures, notarized by Thomas Mitchell on the 15th of May 2023. Over a year ago, they'd signed this more than a year earlier and never said a word. The date punched me in the chest. Last year was when I'd just finished redesigning the store website, bumping online sales by 40%. It was when my parents praised me in front of half the town for my dedication. And it was when they quietly cut me out of their future. While I was still reeling, I heard a car pull into the driveway. They were back from the doctor. I slid the folder exactly where I found it and shut the drawer. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My heart was pounding out of my chest. When they walked in, I tried to sound normal. You're back. What did the doctor say about your blood pressure? The doctor said it's fine. Just keep taking the meds, Dad answered, but I caught him glancing toward the office like he was checking if anything had been moved. Mom stepped into the kitchen. Did anyone call? I hesitated, then decided to test it. Uncle Tom called for Dad. He said he needs to discuss something. At the mention of Thomas Mitchell, my parents traded a quick look. The same worried look I'd seen too many times in the last few months. What did he say? Dad asked, tense. Nothing. Just that he'll call back, I said, watching them closely. Dad nodded and headed straight to the office. I heard the exact drawer I'd opened slide out. A moment later, he came back, looking relieved. At dinner, I felt like I was sitting with strangers. Every time they laughed, asked about the store, talked about the future, all I could see was that folder in the drawer. Patricia, you're working too hard. You look tired, Mom said when she noticed I was barely eating. I met her eyes. I'm fine. Just thinking about the future. The future will be good, Dad said with a warm smile. We've got everything planned out. That line stabbed me. Everything planned out. Was that how they justified erasing me from the family estate? I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw those words in the will. Patricia Sullivan, none. 3 simple words that shattered every bit of trust I had left. Why? Why me? I was the one who stayed, who took care of them, who ran the store for free. Why was I the one cut out? Michael has a family and a great career in California. Susan has a steady job in Texas and has been on her own for years. And me? I gave my best years to this family. This is what I get? The longer I thought about it, the angrier I got. Not just about being cut out, but about the long lie. For more than a year, they lived with me like nothing had changed. Let me work for free, kept promising me a future, praised my devotion, all while knowing they wouldn't leave me anything. At 2 a.m., I got up for water. Passing the office, I saw the light still on. Dad was in there, speaking in a low voice. Tom, I'm worried Patricia will find out, I heard him say. She asked about the call this afternoon. I froze outside the door, listening. No, we haven't told her. We want to wait until after. Yes, I know Michael agreed. What about Susan? My whole body went rigid. Michael knew. Susan probably knew too. Everyone in my family knew about this plan except me. I know it's not fair to Patricia, Dad went on. But she's not married. No kids. Michael and Susan need the money more. I took an involuntary step back, trying to process it. They'd judged my future based on my being unmarried and childless. Right then, I saw what was coming. The life I knew was about to collapse, and I'd have to choose, stay quiet to keep the peace, or fight for what's mine. After overhearing Dad's late-night call with Thomas Mitchell, I ran back to my room like a wounded animal. The door slammed shut behind me, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely alone in the house I was born into. I locked the door, slid down to the floor, and broke down, not quiet tears, but sobs from deep in my chest, like my body was trying to force out every ounce of pain stuck in my heart. I cried over the betrayal. I cried over the years I'd sacrificed. I cried over the future that had been stolen. But most of all, I cried because I finally realized the family love I'd trusted my whole life was nothing but an illusion. My mind short-circuited, replaying the same phrases on a loop. Michael already agreed. Patricia's not married, no kids. Michael and Susan need the money more. Over and over like a nightmare I couldn't escape. By 4 a.m., the tears slowed and denial crept in. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe it's just a draft, not final. But the image of those notarized signatures came back sharp and clear. That wasn't a draft. It was official. It had been in place for over a year. Denial quickly gave way to rage. I wanted to storm downstairs, wake them up, and scream in their faces. Why? Why would you do this to me? But the thought of hearing their excuses, or worse, no apology at all froze me. I couldn't face it. Not yet. When the sun started to rise, I found myself bargaining with thin hope. Maybe if I talk to them, they'll see how unfair this is. Maybe they'll change their minds. Then the rational voice inside cut through. Patricia, they've had a year and a half to rethink this. If they wanted to, they already would have. That morning, I couldn't bring myself to make breakfast as usual. I called downstairs. I'm not feeling well. I'll stay in bed. Do you have a fever? I'll come check, Mom asked, her voice full of concern, concern that now sounded fake in my ears. No, I just need to rest, I answered quickly. I couldn't look at her face. I couldn't pretend. All Saturday, I stayed in bed, drowning in memories. Every happy one turned into a blade cutting deeper. I thought about when David Morrison proposed to me at 22, down on one knee in that little town park. My heart had wanted to burst with joy. But instead of saying yes, I hesitated because of my parents and the store. That night when I told them, they didn't ask if I was happy or if I loved him. They only worried about me leaving Millfield. Chicago's so far and this family needs you, Mom said, hugging me. David's a good man, Dad added, but Sullivan's Hardware is our legacy. You have a responsibility. Now I see it for what it was. They never cared about my happiness. They only cared about keeping me here, working for them, while secretly planning to give everything to Michael and Susan. I remembered the day I got into Northwestern with a full MBA scholarship. I came home beaming, letter in hand. Mom, Dad, Northwestern gave me a full ride, I said, thrilled. Instead of joy, I got worried silence. That's a good opportunity, Dad finally said. But I think you'll learn more running the store. Mom chimed in. A degree isn't as valuable as real experience, and we need you here now. They made me believe I was irreplaceable. The truth? They just needed free labor while reserving the real future for the more important kids. By Saturday evening, anger gave way to crushing depression. 16 years. From age 22 to 38, I'd given my life to a family that never valued me. The numbers haunted me. 16 years working unpaid at the store. Even at minimum wage, that's $280,000. Not counting the revenue boost 35% growth, hundreds of thousands a year thanks to me. I remembered other offers I'd turned down. In 2019, a Detroit software company offered me $75,000 a year as sales manager. I said no, because my parents insisted they needed me. You're the backbone of this family, Dad told me. Backbone. Now I know that meant free worker. By sunset, I reached the final stage, acceptance. But not the quiet kind. Acceptance that I had to act. I saw it clearly. My family had manipulated me for years, using love as a trap to keep me in place, while plotting a future without me. Sunday morning, I finally came downstairs. Mom looked relieved. How are you feeling, honey? I met her eyes. I'm fine now. I've been thinking about a lot. What about? She asked, worried about my tone. I smiled, a cold smile I barely recognized on my own face. About the future. About what comes next. She opened her mouth to probe, but Dad walked in, and the moment passed. At breakfast, I studied them with new eyes, the way they avoided my gaze, the way they dodged talking about the future, the nervous glances they traded when they thought I wasn't looking. They knew. They knew they'd done me wrong, and they still wore the mask. Right then, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep living in this lie. I had to confront the truth, no matter what it cost me. Even if it meant losing my family forever. A chill ran through me at that realization. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. But for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't in forever. I felt free to choose my own fate. Monday morning, after 2 sleepless days with the weight of what I'd discovered, I realized I couldn't carry this alone. I needed someone to confide in, someone who could see things clearly. The first person who came to mind was Linda Chen, my best friend since high school. Linda worked as an accountant at a law firm 30 minutes away. She was the only person I trusted completely, and with her background, she could help me make sense of the legal side. At 10 a.m., while my parents were busy at the store, I called Linda from the office at home. Linda, can we meet? I need to talk about something really important, I blurted out the second she picked up. She caught the panic in my voice instantly. Patricia, what's wrong? You sound terrified. I can't explain over the phone. Can you see me at lunch? I begged. Without hesitation, she agreed. Come by my office at noon. I'll clear my schedule. 2 hours later, I was sitting across from her in her small office, feeling like a lost child. She shut the door, looked at me with concern, and said softly, Now tell me what's going on. The moment she said it, everything spilled out. The suspicious signs, the will, Dad's late-night call. She listened without interrupting. her face shifting as she absorbed every detail. When I got to the part about the asset distribution, I saw the blood drain from her face. "Are you sure you read it right?" she asked, stunned. I nodded hard. "Linda, I went over it 3 times. My name isn't anywhere in that will." She shook her head in disbelief. "That's insane. You're the one who stayed. You're the one running the store. How could they do this to you?" Hearing her validate what I'd been feeling gave me a small rush of relief. At least I wasn't crazy. "I don't get it either," I admitted. "But Michael already knows." He agreed to it. Linda's expression hardened. "Michael? He lives in California, barely visits, and he's getting the store? That makes no sense." "What do you think I should do?" I asked, completely lost. She paused, thinking, then said firmly, "First thing, you need legal advice. You need to know where you stand." "Thomas Mitchell is out of the question," I said quickly. "He's Dad's guy." "Exactly. You need your own lawyer," Linda said. "I know someone, David Hartman. He's a wills and estates lawyer, very reputable, very fair." The name startled me for a second, reminding me of David Morrison, my old fiancé. But Linda explained, "Not him. This David is older, married, trustworthy." "Can you set it up?" I asked. "Of course. I'll call this afternoon," she promised. Later that day, she called back, "Patricia, you've got an appointment Wednesday at 2 p.m. with David Hartman." I agreed, already nervous about the lies I'd need to tell my parents to cover my tracks. Tuesday, I spent the entire day preparing. I printed every financial record I could access, wrote down everything I'd contributed in the past 8 years, and drafted questions for the lawyer. As I tallied the numbers, my anger flared. The store's revenue had jumped from $320,000 in 2016 to $432,000 in 2023, a 35% increase thanks to my efforts. I built the website, launched online ordering, revamped the layout, and built strong customer loyalty. Hundreds of thousands of extra dollars they never would have seen without me. And yet, in their eyes, I was worth nothing. Wednesday afternoon, I told my parents I was meeting an old friend for personal reasons. They didn't push for details, probably still wary after my sick day the weekend before. David Hartman's office was in a sleek downtown building, all polished glass and leather chairs. So different from the cozy, cluttered store I lived in. Hartman was in his early 50s, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, with a calm presence. "Miss Sullivan," Linda gave me a brief outline, he began. "I understand this is very sensitive." My throat tightened. "Yes. I never thought I'd be here, talking about suing my own parents." "I understand," he said kindly. "Start from the beginning. Tell me everything." So I did. The will, the call, the deception. He listened carefully, jotting notes, asking sharp questions. "Are you sure this was the final will, properly notarized?" he asked. "I'm sure. Both signatures notarized May 2023. I confirmed. He nodded. "All right. Now let's talk about your contributions." "No." I laid out the years of unpaid labor, the improvements, the growth numbers. He went through the documents I'd brought, eyebrows raising. "This is solid evidence," he said. "But I have to be honest. Legally, parents can distribute assets however they want. Your contributions don't automatically guarantee inheritance." The words sank like a stone in my chest. "So I have no chance?" "Not exactly," he said quickly. "There are grounds to contest if we can prove undue influence if someone pressured your parents into excluding you." "You mean Michael?" I asked. He gave a measured nod. "It's possible. If he pushed for this to serve his own interests, that could be a case." "But how do I prove it?" I pressed. "Evidence," he said. "Emails, texts, phone records, anything linking him to the decision." I remembered the late-night call. I overheard Dad telling Tom Mitchell that Michael had already agreed. "No." Hartman's eyes sharpened. "That's significant. Not enough alone. But it could support your case." Then he leaned back, serious. "Be prepared. A legal battle like this is long, draining, and expensive. Costs could run $15,000 to $50,000. And there's no guarantee of winning." The number made my stomach drop. I didn't have that kind of money. "But before you even consider that," he added, "try talking to your parents directly. Confront them. See if they'll reconsider without a fight." You think I should?" I asked, my chest tight with dread. Yes. It's the least damaging path. If it fails, then we'll talk legal strategy. Leaving his office, I felt both hopeful and terrified. At least I knew I wasn't powerless, but the fight ahead would be brutal. That night, I called Linda to update her. Follow his advice, she said firmly. Talk to them first. They need to know you're not blind anymore. I exhaled shakily. I'm scared, Linda. What if they throw me out? Patricia, she said softly but firmly. You have every right to the truth. You've given them everything. Now it's time to stand up for yourself. Her words lit a fire in me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to stay quiet just to keep the peace. I was going to demand the fairness I deserved. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning of a battle that would change everything. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. Thursday night, after meeting with David Hartman, I knew I couldn't confront my parents empty-handed. I needed facts. Who knew what, and since when? Hartman's advice about proving undue influence kept echoing in my head. I decided to start with Michael. Dad mentioned him in that late-night call. If he'd been part of the decision, I wanted to hear it from him. Thursday evening, while my parents watched TV downstairs, I went to my room and called Michael in California. It was 6 p.m. in Michigan, 3 p.m. in San Francisco, right when he usually got off work. Patricia, why are you calling? He sounded surprised. Do you have time to talk? I need to ask you a few things, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He hesitated. Sure, what's going on? Do you know Mom and Dad made a new will? I asked straight out. Silence. A few long seconds. The silence answered before he did. Patricia, where did you hear that? He finally asked, uneasy. So you do know, I said. Since when? He let out a heavy sigh. I'm sorry. I was going to tell you, but they said they'd handle it. Since when? I repeated, anger rising. About 6 months ago, he admitted. Dad asked my opinion about how to divide things. 6 months. My fury spiked. And you agreed to cutting me out? Patricia, it wasn't like that, he rushed. I didn't agree or disagree, I just listened. What did he say? I pressed. He paused, then said, He said you're not married, no kids to support. I've got Jennifer and the 2 boys. He thought I needed the money more. A knife to the heart. And that sounded reasonable to you? I don't want to fight with Mom and Dad, he said. And honestly, I figured you'd be taken care of. You still live with them. You don't have housing costs or bills like that. My blood boiled. Do you know I've worked for 8 years without pay? Do you know how many opportunities I turned down to stay and take care of them? I know you sacrificed a lot, he said, sounding guilty. But they've supported you for years, too. Supported? I couldn't believe it. Michael, I'm 38 and running the family store. I'm not a child who needs supporting. He went quiet, like he realized how wrong he sounded. What are you going to do? He asked, worried. I haven't decided, I said coldly. But I want you to know I feel betrayed. Not just by them, by you. I hung up, furious and heartbroken. The brother I respected had stayed silent while they erased me. I called Susan next. If everyone was in on this, I needed the full truth. Susan, can we talk? I called her in Texas. Patricia? Your voice sounds off, she said, hearing the strain. Do you know about the new will? I asked bluntly. Silence then. What will? What are you talking about? Her surprise sounded real, not like Michael's hesitation. You really don't know? I asked again. Patricia, I have no idea what you mean, she said. So I told her everything. The will, the split, my name missing. She gasped. No way, Susan burst out. They can't do that. They already did, I said, exhausted. And Michael's known for 6 months. Michael knew and didn't tell us? She snapped. How could he stay quiet? You truly knew nothing? I asked one more time. Patricia, I swear. I didn't know. If I had, I would have called you immediately. Her sincerity eased something in me. At least not everyone had kept me in the dark. What are you going to do? I asked. Call Michael right now, she said, firm. And tomorrow morning I'm calling Mom and Dad. This isn't acceptable. Don't tell them I told you, I said. I want to face them myself. Fine. But listen, I won't accept this will, she said decisively. If they don't change it, I'll refuse my share. My throat tightened. You don't have to do that. I do, she said. You're the one who stayed. You deserve to be treated fairly. Her words gave me strength. At least one person in my family was on my side. 30 minutes later, Susan called back, angry. I just talked to Michael, she said. He admitted everything. Dad called him early last year to get his input on rearranging the will. What did Dad say? I asked. She relayed it. According to Michael, Dad said you don't need much money because you don't have your own family. He also said the store needs someone with business experience to run it. Business experience? I choked out. I've run that store for 8 years. I know, Susan said, furious. Michael also admitted he didn't push back because he figured Patricia will still be taken care of in the family. They're talking about me like I'm a child who needs caretaking, I said, feeling heat rush to my face. That's not all, Susan added. Michael said Dad mentioned selling the store after they pass. Sell the store? I blurted. So all my work gets wiped out? Exactly, she said. Dad's plan is for Michael to sell it and split the money with me. You'd get nothing. Light. It felt like a lightning strike. Not only would I be cut from the will, but everything I built would be erased. What should I do? I asked, completely adrift. Confront them, Susan said, unwavering. They need to know you found out. I'm scared, I admitted. Patricia, you've sacrificed enough, she said, serious and steady. It's time to stand up for yourself. I'll back you no matter what. That night in bed, I sifted through everything I'd learned. Michael hadn't just known. He'd been part of the talks since early last year. My parents had planned this for over a year, discussed it with him, and told neither me nor Susan. They decided I don't need much money and would be taken care of, like I was a dependent. They didn't see me as an adult with the right to shape my own life. Worse, they planned to sell the store. That meant they weren't just taking my financial future. They were erasing the meaning of the years I'd given them. And right then, something shifted deep inside me, like spring waking a buried seed. The anger and pain made room for resolve. I wasn't going to live in this lie or be treated like a child anymore. After the calls with Michael and Susan, I knew I couldn't delay any longer. The truth was out, and it was time to face my parents. But this time, I wasn't walking in blind. I had to be ready for every excuse, every manipulation they might throw at me. Friday morning, I sat in my room with a stack of blank paper and started writing everything down. My contributions over the last 8 years. Financial. Full-time unpaid work from 2016. 2024. About $280,000. Increased revenue from $320,000 to $432,000, 35% growth. Built the website and online ordering system. Saved about $15,000 in outsourcing. Improved the store layout, boosting sales efficiency. Personal. Cared for both parents through health issues. Turned down the Northwestern MBA scholarship. $180,000 value. Said no to David Morrison's proposal. Declined a Detroit job offer worth $75,000 divided by year. Looking at the list, it hit me. I hadn't just given my time. I'd sacrificed more than $500,000 in opportunities for this family. Questions I needed to ask. Why did you cut me out of the will? How long have you planned this? Why was Michael consulted but not me? Do you plan to sell the store after you're gone? What did all those promises about me inheriting the store mean? Expected excuses and my counterpoints. You're not married. You don't need much money. I'm 38. Marriage doesn't define my worth or my right to fairness. Michael and Susan need it more. They have families. They both have stable jobs and incomes. I gave up my career for this family. You'll still live here and be cared for. I'm not a dependent. I've worked 8 years without pay to keep this place running. Once I had my plan, I called David Hartman. I've gathered more info and I'm ready to talk to them, I told him. What did you find out? He asked. My brother admitted he knew about the will 6 months ago. He said Dad called him, asked his opinion, and he didn't object. That's significant, Hartman said. It supports undue influence. Michael benefited from you being cut out, and he was consulted while you weren't. How should I approach them? I asked. Stay calm, professional, he said. Lay out the facts. Give them a chance to explain. If they react defensively or hostile, that works as evidence too. What if they throw me out? I asked, the fear tightening my chest. Record the conversation if you can, he advised. Michigan is a one-party consent state. Their reaction could be crucial in court. Record it. I hadn't even thought of that. But the thought of having proof gave me some security. That afternoon, I called Linda. "Are you sure you're ready?" she asked gently. "I can't keep living in this lie," I said firmly. "I need to hear it from them." "When?" she asked. "Sunday night. After dinner. That's when we're always together. I'll keep my phone by me all night," she said. "If anything happens, call me right away." On Saturday, I tried to steel myself. I walked through Millfield, revisiting the landmarks of my life, my school, the park, the store. Standing outside Sullivan's Hardware, I remembered Dad telling me when I was 12, "One day, you'll run this place." Now I knew that was just bait. A way to trap me here for free. That night, Susan called to check on me. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Don't be," she said firmly. "You've done enough. If they don't change the will, I'll refuse my share. I won't accept blood money from this kind of injustice." Her loyalty brought tears to my eyes. Sunday morning, I woke up wired with fear and determination. This was it, the day that would change everything. I made breakfast like usual, but in my heart, I knew it might be the last time I ever did. "You seem tense," Mom said as I poured her coffee. "Just thinking about work," I deflected. Dad asked, "Problems at the store?" I looked him straight in the eye. "No, just thinking about the future." The way I stressed future made both of them exchange a quick, nervous glance. All day I played the role. Helped cook dinner, sat with Dad for TV, kept the chatter light. But every second, I was counting down. At 5 p.m., I checked my phone recorder, battery full. Linda and Hartman's numbers are saved on speed dial. At 6 p.m., we sat down to our traditional Sunday dinner. Roast beef, mashed potatoes, green beans, a meal I'd made hundreds of times. I studied their faces as we ate. The way Dad dodged my eyes when talking about the week ahead. The way Mom steered the conversation away whenever the future came up. At 7, we moved to the living room. Dad is in his recliner. Mom with her tea. I am sitting across from them. I set my phone on the coffee table, recording. They noticed, but said nothing. "Mom, Dad," I began, my voice trembling just a little. "I have something important to talk about." They exchanged that look again. The one that said, "We've been waiting for this." "What is it, honey?" Mom asked, tension in her voice. I took a deep breath. "I want to talk about the new will you made last May." The silence that followed was heavy. Dad lowered his newspaper. Mom set down her teacup. Both stared at me, faces pale and tight. The confrontation I'd prepared for all week had finally begun. And as the silence stretched, I realized one thing. Whatever happened next, nothing in my life would ever be the same. The silence after I said the word will stretch like an eternity. Dad's eyes went wide. Mom's fingers clenched her teacup so tight I thought it might shatter. "Where did you hear about that?" Dad finally asked, his voice rough. I kept my voice steady. "I found it in your desk drawer last week." "You had no right to go through our things," Mom snapped, her voice trembling with anger. I locked my gaze on hers. "And you had no right to decide my future without ever asking me." "Patricia, how dare you talk to us like this?" Dad barked, rising to his feet. I stayed seated, calm but firm. "I'm talking like a 8-year-old adult who's spent 8 years serving this family." That stopped him. He froze, taken aback by a tone he'd never heard from me. "Can you explain why my name isn't in the will?" I pressed. Mom burst into tears. "Sweetheart, we never meant harm. We're family. Don't let money tear us apart." "This isn't about money," I cut in. "It's about respect. About fairness." Dad slumped back into his chair, defeated. "Patricia, I'll explain. But turn that recorder off first." "No," I said flatly. "I need a record of this conversation." "You don't trust your own parents?" he asked, stunned. I met his eyes. "You signed a will more than a year ago, cutting me out completely, and never told me. Why would I trust you now?" He fell silent, then sighed. "Fine. The truth is, Michael and Susan have families. They've got more expenses. You still live here, you don't—" "Stop right there," I snapped. "Do you realize how many opportunities I turned down to stay here and take care of this family?" He looked confused. "What opportunities?" "Northwestern. David Morrison's proposal. The Detroit job. I fired off. I gave up all of it because you told me this family needed me." Mom sobbed harder. We never forced you. Never forced? My anger broke loose. When I got into Northwestern, you said, this family needs you right now. When David proposed, you said, the store is our blood. You guilted me into staying every single time. They both went silent. Maybe for the first time they saw their own manipulation reflected back at them. And now, my voice cracked. After I gave everything up, you decide I don't need money and hand it all to Michael and Susan. Patricia, let's not say hurtful things, Dad tried. Hurtful? I stood. Do you know what it feels like to discover you've been erased from your own family's future? You'll always be our daughter, Mom sobbed. We'll always take care of you. That broke me. You still see me as a child you have to take care of. I'm 38, I run this store. But you act like I'm helpless. That's not what she meant, Mom insisted weakly. Then what did she mean? I shot back. Why does Michael inherit the store I've managed for 8 years? Dad muttered, reluctant. Michael has more business experience. I stared at him. I boosted revenue 35%. Built the website. Modernized the store. Michael's never even set foot behind the counter. What experience are you talking about? He couldn't answer. And I know something else, I said, my voice sharp. You plan to sell the store after you're gone, don't you? Their eyes darted to each other in panic. Where did you hear that? Dad asked, his throat tight. Michael told Susan, I said. So everything I poured into this store, my life's work, means nothing to you. You'll erase it all. That's when Dad snapped. It's my right. It's my property, I can do what I want. A cold shiver ran through me. So you admit it, you don't see me as family. Just as unpaid labor. Don't say that, Mom begged. It's the truth, I said, staring her down. 8 years unpaid. Caring for you when you were sick. Sacrificing every chance at my own life. And this is how you repay me. Dad shot to his feet, furious. You will not speak to us like that. Have you forgotten respect? Respect? I shouted back. You lied to me for over a year and call me disrespectful? I didn't lie, Dad snapped. I just hadn't found the right way to tell you. Pain hit harder than anger. The right way? Were you planning to wait until you were dead and let me find out in a lawyer's office? Enough, Dad roared. What do you want? Equal shares? I looked him dead in the eye. I want to be treated like family, not like an outsider. You are family, Mom wept. No, I shook my head. Family doesn't hide decisions this big. Family includes you. Family respects you. Night. I drew a deep breath and gave them my final line. I demand you change the will and divide the estate fairly among the 3 of us. If you don't, I'll challenge it in court. You'd sue your own parents? Dad shouted. I'm not threatening, I said calmly. I'm telling you my decision. His face turned red with rage. If it's war you want, I'll give you war. But remember, this is my house. And remember, I said, standing tall, I'm not your little girl anymore. You don't get to command me. There was no going back. The war between me and my parents had begun. You have 48 hours to decide, I told them. If nothing changes, my lawyer will call. I stopped the recording, grabbed my phone, and walked out, leaving them in stunned, furious silence. As I left the room, I knew I'd lost my family. But for the first time in my life, I felt I'd finally stood up for myself. 48 hours passed in a silence so heavy it felt like the house itself was holding its breath. After Sunday night's explosion, my parents didn't speak a word to me. Breakfast was wordless. At the store, they moved around me like I wasn't there. At night, they came home without so much as a hello. By Tuesday evening, as the deadline I'd set ticked down, I kept hoping for a knock at my door, a phone call, even just a note slipped under my door. Something. But nothing came. Silence was their choice. At 8 p.m., I picked up the phone and called David Hartman. Mr. Hartman, they didn't change a thing, I said, my voice flat. 48 hours are up. Nothing. I understand, he said gently. Are you sure you want to move forward with litigation? Once you do, there's no going back. I've thought it through, I answered. I can't live with this injustice. The next morning, Linda showed up with a suitcase in hand. Patricia, you can't stay here while you're suing them, she said firmly. You need neutral ground to think clearly. Relief washed over me. Are you sure you don't mind? Mind? She smiled. You can stay as long as you need. As I packed, Mom appeared in the doorway, eyes swollen. Where are you going? She asked, voice trembling. I'm staying with Linda during the case, I said, snapping the lock on my suitcase. Patricia, don't do this, she pleaded. We can still talk. It's too late for that, Mom, I said quietly. My lawyer files today. Within a week, Millfield was buzzing. The Tribune headline screamed across the front page. Local hardware store heiress sues parents over will. When Linda handed me the paper, I felt my stomach twist. The article painted me as greedy, a daughter tearing her family apart for money. They don't get it, I muttered. The toe is split down the middle. Some whispered in support, seeing the injustice, but most clucked their tongues, saying no child should ever sue their parents. Week 2, Michael called, his voice sharp. Do you even know what you're doing? He barked. I know exactly what I'm doing, I said coolly. You're destroying this family. They're old, they can't handle this pressure. And did you think about me when you sat back and agreed to erase me from the will? I shot back. He fell quiet, then tried another tactic. I'll fly home. We can work this out. Now you want to work it out? I asked bitterly. After I've already filed suit? By that weekend, Michael was back in Michigan, huddled with my parents at the store. In month 2, the discovery process began. Hartman pushed for emails, texts, anything tied to the will. We've got something, he said in our next meeting. Emails from your father to Michael last January, talking about how Patricia doesn't need much money. Is that enough to win? I asked, hope creeping in. It strengthens undue influence, he nodded. But they'll argue it was their free choice. In month 3, the strain hit Dad hard. He ended up in the hospital with sky-high blood pressure. Do you want to visit him? Linda asked softly. I shook my head, tears burning. If I walk in there, I'll only make it worse. By month 4, the other side offered a settlement. $150,000, Hartman relayed. You drop the case, you accept the will. $150,000 out of nearly $1.7 million? I scoffed. That's 9%. They raised it to $250,000, then $300,000. I refused each time. I don't want hush money, I told Hartman. I want recognition. I want fairness. Month 5, Susan flew in from Texas. We met at a small cafe. Patricia, she said, leaning across the table. Michael's changed his mind. What do you mean? He admits he was wrong. He's ready to split everything 3 ways. I sat back, stunned. After 5 brutal months, the brother who stayed silent was finally on my side. There's a condition, Susan added. You have to drop the lawsuit and reconcile. The following week, we all gathered in Thomas Mitchell's office. My first time seeing everyone in the same room since the war began. Dad looked older, thinner. Mom seemed exhausted, worn down. Michael sat stiffly, eyes steady. Patricia, Dad began, his voice gravelly. I'm sorry, I was wrong. My throat tightened. Do you understand what this did to me? I do, he nodded slowly. I wasn't fair to you. Mom's voice shook as she whispered. Can you forgive us? I scanned the room, my weary parents, my guilty brother, my loyal sister, and the lawyer waiting with fresh papers. I'd fought for this moment, but the cost was steep. I forgive you, I said at last. But things will never be the same. The new will was signed, splitting everything evenly. I withdrew my case. On paper, I'd won. But walking back into Linda's house that night, my chest felt hollow. You did it? She said gently. You got justice. Did I? I whispered. I got fairness. But I lost my family. And that was the bitter truth. Justice had come, but at the price of bonds that could never be restored. 2 years had passed since I walked out of Millfield with a suitcase and a shattered heart. 2 years of learning how to live as Patricia Sullivan, not the daughter of Sullivan's Hardware, not the caretaker of my parents, but simply myself. I moved to Grand Rapids, 60 miles away, far enough to start fresh, close enough if an emergency ever called me back. With my share of the inheritance, I opened a small hardware shop called Patricia's Home and Garden in a growing neighborhood. Are you sure you want to open a hardware store? Linda asked when I told her the plan. After everything that happened? I smiled. This is what I know best, and this time I'm doing it my way. My store was nothing like Sullivan's Hardware. It focused on women, DIY projects, gardening, and home decor. I hosted weekend workshops on basic repairs, garden design, and hands-on projects. From the first month, I drew a loyal crowd. They didn't just come to shop, they came to learn, to connect. Patricia, you explain things so clearly. Mrs. Angela Thompson said after a class on shelf building, "You never make us feel stupid for not knowing." Her words warmed me. Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. I believe everyone can learn the basics. By the end of the first year, revenue reached $180,000. Modest, steady, but what mattered most was that for the first time in my life I felt joy in the work. I was in charge of my own choices. Around month 8, I met Thomas Carter at a community gardening class I was teaching. He was 42, a high school teacher, divorced, raising 2 kids, Emily, 14, and Jake, 11. Miss Sullivan, I don't know the first thing about gardening, he said with a sheepish grin, but my kids want a small garden. Then we'll start with the simplest steps, I told him, eager to help. Over the months, Thomas kept showing up. We started chatting after class, grabbing coffee, and slowly, something grew between us. I've never met anyone like you, he said one evening in the little garden he'd built. You're strong, independent, patient. I felt warmth spread through me. You're the first man who's never tried to change me. Our relationship unfolded naturally. No pressure, no demands. He never asked me to sacrifice myself, and I never felt like I had to prove anything. Emily and Jake were cautious at first, but in time they warmed up. Patricia, will you teach me how to build a birdhouse? Jake asked one weekend. Of course, I said, grinning. We'll make a beautiful one. Then, in December of my second year, Susan called. Patricia, I have bad news, she said softly. Dad passed away this morning, heart attack. The words punched a hole in my chest. Do you need me to come? I know you and Dad, she hesitated. But it's still family. It's his funeral. I'll be there, I decided. No matter what, he was my father. The funeral was heavy and there was an awkward silence everywhere. Mom, now 67, frail and tired, looked at me with a mix of longing and unease. Michael was there with his family. We exchanged polite greetings, nothing more. After the burial, Mom approached me. Patricia, can I talk to you? She asked, voice trembling. I nodded, and we stepped aside. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I know your father and I hurt you. Old emotions rose, but the bitterness had faded. I've learned to forgive, Mom. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Are you happy? She asked carefully. I smiled for the first time that day. I am. I have a business I love. I have Thomas and his kids. I've found a new kind of family. Thomas? She asked, curious. A good man, I said simply. He respects me, loves me as I am. She nodded, eyes soft. That's all I ever wanted for you. Oh, I didn't argue, though we both knew the past told a different story. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived from Thomas Mitchell, the old family lawyer. Dad had left me a private note to be opened only after his death. Patricia, my dear daughter, I know no apology can erase the pain I caused. I was wrong to treat you as a child who needed protecting instead of the strong woman you are. You've shown me you can stand on your own, succeed without us. I'm more proud of you than you'll ever know. Sullivan's hardware will be sold, and my share will be divided equally among the 3 of you. You deserve more than I ever gave. I cried as I read it, not out of grief, but because, finally, he had seen me clearly. That night, I told Thomas about the letter. How do you feel? He asked gently. I thought for a moment. Complete, like the circle finally closed. What will you do with the extra inheritance? I want to expand the shop, I said. And maybe write a book for women about standing on their own in family and work. His eyes lit up. That would be a great book. You've got so much to share. Looking back now, I see it clearly. Losing my old family wasn't the end, it was the beginning. I found myself. I found real love. Most importantly, I learned to put my own worth first. They thought they could erase me from the future with a will, but I wrote my own story better than anything they could have imagined. And for the first time in my life, I am truly free, free from false expectations, free from dependency, free to love the people who truly deserve it.